what are some ways that we can actually use social media to actually make connections rather than just turn people off?
There's a lot of negative approach to sales and negative
Yeah.
connotation with sales, but it doesn't have to be. You can sell stuff if you do it the right way and you add value and you kind of build the relationship.
How can we actually give that value? Because everyone's always talking about giving value, but really, it's not. Really, they're just asking to get value. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
It doesn't have to be the direct one-to-one value of like, hey, I'm gonna, send you something or do something, or, for you individually, it's just like build a reputation and put content out there. And also just approach it in a very unique way and in a genuine way.
Today, we are joined by serial entrepreneur, the co-founder of Fitt, which has now evolved into insider.fit.co. Cannot wait to get into the journey. Anthony Vennare, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Anthony, you've done a lot of amazing things up into your current point in time. I mean, you've raised over $1 million in capital, venture capital, which is it's a pretty exciting thing, I think, for any entrepreneur. But before we get into where you're at now, I want to go back in time, back to the future. Take us to the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey and explain, how'd you get started? Have you always been an entrepreneur, or was it learned? How'd you get started?
Yeah, it's not something that I learned with my family and where I grew up. It was always about going to school and getting a job that was like a teacher or something else that was, looked at that way.
Yep.
So I started doing things obviously in high school, selling workout programs and supplements and different things that I could do. And maybe even on the legal side a little bit, maybe buying and selling beer for people when it wasn't the most smart thing to do. But that led to, obviously, I joined the military at high school. And after I got out of the Marines, I knew fitness in the Marines, and doing what I did, there was a lot of fitness involved in when I got out. And after playing high school football, it was really kind of my passion. So the first thing I did was start training people in parks and at their homes. And again, it was before being an entrepreneur was cool. It wasn't something I knew that people were doing. It was just a way to kind of make money and survive. And
So just like
and
kind of like
growing.
one-on-one fitness coaching with people.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
curious,
it was.
how were you finding clients? Were they coming to you, or were you finding them?
So I got a job at a YMCA for a couple weeks, and a lot of those clients wanted to work with me, but I didn't like the fact that I was out there kind of
Yeah.
giving up a large portion of the check to them. So I started doing in home, and then back then it was 2011, so Craigslist, a little bit of Facebook, posting stuff online, just getting out there. And before I knew, we had so many members that we ended up opening our first business, which was a gym. We got a lease for an indoor skate park that was 12,000 square feet, and we tore it down and built it into a gym.
That's really cool. So I'm kind of curious, did you have enough clients right off the bat that you could go full time there? How did you make that segue from working at a gym or working under management to going full time into your fitness business?
Yeah, it was really just, building the relationship with the clients, helping them kind of help us, where, we put in a lot of effort, the community that we had, and one by one, they would tell their friends and it would grow. And before I knew it, I was fully booked up at the Y, which is then when I went into my own and doing it at the parks and at their homes. And before I knew that, we had, 20 people a class working out at parks, but I live in Pennsylvania where it gets really cold.
Yeah.
So then we said, we really, at that time that kind of all came to an end in the fall, we said we got to get a gym, and we found this space. It was an indoor skate park, and the owner didn't think that we could actually tear. It was 12,000 square feet, ramps, everything, and we'd had a handshake deal for a really cheap rent if we could tear it down. And I assumed he thought we were just going to clean it up and maybe not make it happen. But within a weekend, me and a bunch of my buddies came and we tore the thing down. And we have the pics online. It's kind of cool to see the transition. But we had 12,000 square feet, and this was when CrossFit was coming around, kettlebells. And our first day opening, we were essentially booked because all the members that we had built as a base started coming. And then from there, I actually went door to door in our community, had the cops call me a bunch of times, just handing out flyers. Because if you think about where I live in an area like Pittsburgh, in a community that we have, there's thousands and thousands of people just in our zip code, and you need a couple hundred people to make a gym work. And when you went there and as a nice kind of kid and telling people that you want to have them come work out for free and try a class, before you know it, we were booked. And that's when we started kind of growing our business from there for the first time.
Love that. That's a really great story. I mean, that's what entrepreneurship is all about. It's making it happen. But I also like how you kind of proved out the concept by developing a base of true fans, right? Which I think is a really important thing. Some entrepreneurs think of it as jumping out of a helicopter and creating or building your parachute on the way down. That's kind of dangerous, right? So if you can kind of prove out your concept on the front end, that's a beautiful thing. Hey, Mark here. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Let YouTube know you're enjoying this video. Let me know you're enjoying this video. All right, let's get back into this episode. So you've built out, you've tore down this skate park, you built out your gym. How did it evolve from there? Because one of the things that I think we can say about you, Anthony, is you've continued to evolve and innovate over time. So how did it evolve from the gym to your Fitt app?
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of different things, everywhere from one gym to multiple to our own program and license and certification and equipment, and then managing 40 different locations and kind of getting burnt out and realizing that around that time I read one of Gary Vee's books and I realized that there was you know venture money and investment in different ways to make money online, and we really pushed the online and started selling programs online. And we were, and as a lot of the times, my brother and I, who run all my businesses together, we would have this kind of lifestyle business thing where you're making good money, but there's a max out of your time and effort. And we didn't want to keep working at that rate.
Yeah.
So once we realized there was this whole venture capital world where, I mean, to say it this way is obviously a simple way, but people are just giving you free money to go try things. So we launched in between that, like I said, owning gyms and 20 different businesses to kind of learn the process. But once we kind of knew what we were doing, we launched Fitt. So Fitt was our first kind of big venture back business. It was, if like Eater, Thrillist, Infatuation, even like Yelp, anywhere you want to go find a restaurant or a bar or nightlife or all these things, they exist. And we looked at, what if I want to go to a park or find a trail or go to a gym or find a healthy restaurant? So we started here in Pittsburgh, and we ended up scaling that to 31 different cities across 4 continents. And the whole thing was, making fitness and wellness accessible on a local level. And yeah, it was our first company, our first year in business. We were close to $1 million of revenue, and then we raised total was I think 4.5 million in venture capital,
Wow.
from individual investors, angel investors, and then strategic investors at the end of it. So it was a crazy transition. And in reality, all the stuff I was doing through my other businesses, kind of on my own, it's all the stuff you need to do anyways. It's just putting into a more formalized pitch and approach, and really having the understanding and taking the time to learn how to not just kind of be on your own as looked at like a side hustle, but just formalizing everything and showing that to people. And that's all it really was. The difference was the same in effort and time. It was really just a formalized approach and pitch and really getting it out there and showing people that we know what we're doing.
Yeah, well, certainly having a resume, having a digital presence is more important than perhaps any time in human history. It's so easy for someone to say, "Hey, what's Anthony about? I'm going to check him out on LinkedIn," which you should, by the way, or check him out on Instagram, which you should, by the way, or just go to insider.fit.co to learn more about what Anthony's doing now. But I want to back it up a little bit because I think you hit on something that's really interesting. You had proven out a concept, you opened up a gym, you started expanding into multiple locations. I think you said you had 40 different locations at a particular time, but you realized that you were burnt out, right? So I'm kind of curious. This is one of the fears I have as an entrepreneur, as a side hustler. We're trying to take our side hustle full time, but we don't want to build our own business at the same time. What advice would you give to someone when they're trying to reverse engineer what their perfect life would look like?
Yeah, the big thing was, you know, not only was I burnt out, but it was at a time. So my father had passed away. He had cancer, and we never really took time to deal with that. So working more and more and
Yeah.
more, I started to become unhealthy, even though we were in the fitness business and no gyms. So that was difficult. Working way too much, not taking care of myself, and thinking about like myself first is kind of like the core of the product, not just kind of sacrificing everything to make it work. And two, the thing was we had these locations and travel and rent and all this stuff, and we realized that there was a limit on our growth. Both the business that we were in was based off of in person, as well as there was just so much that we put on our shoulders because we didn't build a structure. We didn't have the right team, we didn't have the right hiring, there was no process. It was all kind of, what did we say, toothpicks and glue. It wasn't really held together well, and that was the issue. So everything we've done from here on out was, both think about how you want to feel and the time you want to put in, and making sure you're taking care of yourself because you're the product, if you're the entrepreneur that's kind of running the company. Also, it was from the getting the right people involved and having the right plan. Because as you start, I mean, you probably know this, but when you start going and building something, you start running full speed. You never really think about stuff. You just start doing it.
Yeah.
And like you said, building your patient on the way down. Well, that's definitely the wrong way to do it, because if it does succeed, you either have to go back and redo everything that you did because you weren't thinking about things properly, or you kind of got to start from scratch, even though you're making money and growing. So that was a big issue for us, was just being thoughtful from the beginning of it.
Yeah, you certainly have, if you're have any chance at scaling and running multiple gyms or running an app or running a large newsletter and whatnot, you have to have the right systems in place. But quite frankly, if you're just starting out, if you're an entrepreneur, you don't necessarily know what systems you need to have in place, right?
Yeah.
So how can we, as entrepreneurs and side hustlers, how can we take a step back to look at the bigger picture? Because it's so easy to get caught up in working in your business day to day, just doing the same things. How can we actually, what is something that's been successful for you, Anthony, to take a step back and look at the big picture as a whole? Is it, storyboarding, vision boarding, teaming up with different people? What would you recommend?
We always think through kind of product roadmap, content roadmap, really planning things out on a 1, 6, 12-month timeline,
Mm-hmm.
looking at every aspect of the business. So like, for example, Fitt Insider is a newsletter and podcast, but in reality, it's us coming on as advisors of companies, advisors to different venture capital funds, getting paid for our time on top of that, as well as launching companies from within that. So it's almost like a venture studio. And with this, from the outside looking in, you see news on podcasts, but on the back end, we know when things are going out, why, how, who we're targeting, who the audience is, the product side of it, even though it's just a website and with email form, there's so much more that goes into the newsletter. And obviously, the podcast side. So it's really just everything we want to achieve, kind of reverse engineering to that point and having a plan all along the way, making sure that we're using the right softwares and systems. And I mean, this has been done a million times. If you look in Google, just product roadmap, content roadmap, company timeline, mission, anything, even putting what your thoughts into a typical startup deck, which there's thousands of examples online.
Yeah.
Just really getting the format, and you don't have to invent this. It exists. It's just going and learning from some of these people, listening to a few good podcasts about how people kind of position their business and why, and just having more thoughtfulness around it versus just like, hey, I'm going to do it. And a lot of times too, I think people focus on the easy things like, oh, I'm going to get things set up through LegalZoom, or oh, I'm going to put up a website, or oh, I'm going to get a logo made. But okay, for what? What are you doing after that? And a lot of the time when we talk to companies, even companies that are somewhat successful, I'm like, what's your goal next? What's your next plan? Where are you going with this? Yes, you've made X amount of money. What's your goal to double that? And it's kind of like, I don't know. And that's,
Yeah.
I think, the problem a lot of the time.
Well, it's like I'm reading Patrick Bet-David's book, Your Next 5 Moves, and that's kind of the core thing, getting to know yourself and then getting to know where you want to be. But one of the challenges I think as well is you can't always see the future, right? To me, entrepreneurship and side hustling is kind of about just keep opening up doors in front of you and figure out what's going on the back end, right? Like in your position now, linking up venture capital, business owners in the fitness industry through the newsletter and the podcast, that's insider.fit.co. You probably didn't expect your life to manifest itself in this way, right? So were there any opportunities that you are glad that you took up on, or any opportunities that you wish you would have taken on this journey?
Yeah, and that's the thing. So we've had a million plans, and obviously they change, like you
Right.
said, and different opportunities there. So I'm not knocking persistence,
Yeah.
and always running full speed ahead and making sure you do it. But I think about it this way: it's like, running with your eyes closed, or at least your eyes open, and you have kind of a roadmap. Even if it's the map changes, or you go down a different trail or different path, you have to be looking ahead and kind of thinking for where you're going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for where we're at, so our company originally, even the gyms, for example, I wish we would have not closed the gyms and got burnt out, because if you look at the fitness industry now, we were so far ahead of the game with kettlebells and bodyweight training and scale and the markets that we are in. It was such a huge business and a huge opportunity. It was massively profitable, but we didn't plan the right way. So that's, of all the things, like that's the first thing that I look at as a big mistake. And then even where we're at right now, for example, Fitt was it was our consumer brand that I mentioned, scaling that with advertising, and then eventually having to pivot into more of a marketplace. From the beginning, I wish we would have done advertising. And as we kind of pivoted, it was really rewriting our entire platform and system and spending a ton of money. I wish we would have done that in a different way. So yeah, you can look back and be like, oh, there's things I would have done. But for us, it was being very thoughtful about the time and effort, and realizing too, can I scale this thing to be worth X amount of dollars, or should I kind of cut and run on a certain things? And although I look back at the gym and say, I wish I would have kept that alive, you know, changing to where we are now and going online obviously has been super successful. So
Well, and it seems to me like the experience that you gained from that is super applicable to what you're doing now, right? Because now you're using that knowledge of the systems and the processes and whatnot to help other gym owners scale and grow their businesses, right?
yeah, and that's something too is, yes, things might not go as planned and you change a little bit, but we were able to always learn and really think. So I never actually went to college, barely graduated high school, joined the Marines when I was 17. It was not, school and learning on a kind of typical level is not my thing, but from all the stuff that we've done, like, a portion of what I do sometimes is go and speak at colleges and at different programs. And, to think I didn't learn the typical way, but everything we've done has been a massive learning experience.
Yeah.
And I think there's value in a lot of those failures. And although I don't like to fail and I don't like to do the wrong things, instead of looking back saying we made mistakes, it's like, what do we do here and how can we make this help us grow with our different things in the future, and being persistent and going forward with stuff and always wanting to kind of, obviously work for ourselves versus go get a job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of that comes down to knowing yourself, right? Because you don't strike me as the type of person who would be just excited to wake up and go to a 9 to 5 job, which frankly, I'm not either, but it's
Yeah.
so easy to get caught up in that trap of go to college, get the 9 to 5, grind it out for 40 years and then die. Like, not exciting to me. Leave a legacy, people. Know yourself. And if that's you, that's fine. Right. But know yourself. Know yourself. Know what
Yeah.
you're great at. All right, cool. So we're, of course, talking to Anthony Vennare here from insider.fit.co, where he's connecting people and growing your health and your fitness industry, business, what have you. But listen, I want to back it up because you just touched on something, Anthony. I thought it was really interesting, in ways that you maybe would have reassessed your strategy for growing your Fitt app. That's the FITT app, right? So if I'm developing an app, and this is something that comes up on Shark Tank a lot, right? How do you get people to actually join your app and contribute to your app and join your community? What would be some takeaways that you would recommend?
Yeah, for us, the big thing was the quality of the content and the unique kind of proposition. Like I said, there's a million different places you can go to find what restaurant or bar to go to,
Right.
where to, go to this event or do this sports related thing. But for fitness and wellness, it really wasn't there. We saw that opportunity growing. And then a big thing for us was just the local value, which again, it's hard to build a local business. To have writers on the ground in 31 cities is rough, especially when they're in Australia and they're in London and you're in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. How do you do that? How do you get them to actually buy into it? Right. Why is
Yeah.
you've found a way to differentiate your app, but how do you get people to actually contribute?
Yeah. I mean, paying writers and doing it the right way, as well as, our first 10 cities, I drove city to city and just kind of hustled
Wow.
and met people and talked to them. So getting that going and then building that base was important. But also for us, my brother is my co-founder, having been a writer and understanding the content side, just a really good strategy and plan of what we were doing and staying true to the roots of the brand. As well as we really wrote, and I know everyone talks about SEO and all that, but I mean, really putting an effort and time to understand what people are looking for. Yoga studios near me, run routes near me, all these different things, crafting content that's 100% valuable, but targets that. And, getting 500,000 plus people a month just through search terms to a platform. And then leading them to, oh, I found this trail, or I found this gym, or I found this restaurant. What else is there? And really making the product valuable. And that was from the beginning super important for us. And that, and up until the last day, it was really the value was that the brand and the content was just naturally available to everybody. And it was kind of crazy to think that, across 31 different cities and a bunch of continents through Google, people were finding us, hundreds of thousands of times on a monthly basis.
Now, were you a master, a whiz kid when it comes to Google search and SEO and whatnot? Was your brother the expert? How did you actually execute on that? Because that can be a complicated facet of the
Yeah,
business.
back in the day, I was, and that's how in between our gym and Fit, we did a bunch of different things, but one of them was selling online fitness programs. The company actually still is up. We're going to relaunch it because we're excited about it, but it's called Hybrid Athlete. That was the name of our first gym. And there's a site, it's thehybridathlete.com. It still is number one for bodyweight training plan, kettlebell training plan, all that stuff to this day. Gets a
Wow.
couple thousand people a day to it. And it was really just understanding how to craft quality content. And it wasn't as much gaming. I was lucky that my brother's a phenomenal writer and he could come in and create this content, but guiding, understanding like, it's honestly, it's been written about a million times. There's people like Neil Patel that know what they're doing way more than I do, but the simplicities of the right domain, the right URL, the right copy, the right title, the right keyword density. Like if you actually put the time into that, it pays off. Every business we've ever been in, we put the time into that first. And that really drives and crafts even like the insider stuff. Our audience is for the business and fitness side, the business side of fitness and wellness, more specifically like venture capital and private equity and, different businesses. Like our podcast is that everyone from the CEO of Strava to, the founder of the most popular fitness apps. And we have a crazy audience from search, but it's super specific, like, Apple Fitness business evaluation or looking at certain terms. We know that even if 20 people search for that, we're going to get those people to find us. So every business we do is really based off of that basis of, if we know our content's valuable and we're adding value, let's make sure the people that are looking for what we have can find us.
Yeah. And I don't think that happens overnight. It takes time. It's kind of like a snowball effect, right? And it's really easy to get caught up in saying, okay, here's where Anthony's at after 10, 15, 20 years, but it doesn't happen overnight. You just focus, at least my mentality is focus on just getting a little bit better every day, putting in the effort, putting in the time, turning off Netflix, and the results will speak for themselves. But I mean, one of the things that's really impressive to me, Anthony, is your boots on the ground, get it done type of strategy. Door to door, door to door, getting gym memberships, driving city to city to get contributors for your app. We live in a world now which is all about DMing as many people as possible and giving your sales pitch. What are some ways that we can actually use social media to actually make connections rather than just turn people off? What are you doing there?
Yeah, I mean, for Fitt, for example, growing our revenue to a couple $1 million a year by cold outreach for advertising. It's not sexy and it's not, fun, but I think a lot of the problem is, and you probably get hit up, but we do all the time. And people come in and they ask for time, or they almost request time, and they try to sell something without ever adding any value or building any relationship.
Yes.
They're just throwing stuff against the wall, which, yeah, you can get a lot of people to see it, but there's just zero value. It's almost like, one, that people are inconsiderate of time, but also there's just no value to add. And they don't really try to do anything other than just kind of get your attention and try to sell you something or connect in a very disingenuous way. So it's
I
really
actually,
putting the time.
just to expand on that point, Anthony, on my calendar sign up, because I get a lot of people that want to call me and talk with me. I put in my calendar that if this is a sales call, let me know now. If you try to pitch me something on the kind of sneak in a sales pitch in the back end, I'm not going to buy it. Just let me know now. Let's respect our time, right? It's
exactly.
crazy.
And you can sell something and not be, kind of, there's a lot of negative approach to sales and negative connotation with sales, but it doesn't have to be. You can sell stuff if you do it the right way and you add value and you kind of build the relationship. So yeah, it's just a matter of putting the time and effort in. Even now, like one of the companies we're advising is building a software for fitness professionals to use, where they can sell their programs and offerings online. It's obviously a massive space. There's a lot of people in it. And when talking to the salespeople there, it's go have a discovery call. Don't sell them anything. Say, hey, we're building a product. We're trying to make the product better. Give me 15 minutes of your time. I just want to ask you questions and not tell you a single thing. It's going to help me build a better product. And maybe that product will help you out one day. Yeah, some people say no. Some people say yeah. And then you build a relationship just by showing an interest in their time and kind of advice. And maybe one day that professional that we go and I get questions for and build a product and they see the features that they recommended in the product, maybe that will help them. But also we're kind of learning from them too. And then it's much easier to say, hey, thanks for the time. Here's that product you helped us out with. It's launched. And that sale is just so much easier. And in reality, you're still asking for their time and advice. It's just a different way of going about it.
Yeah. And I can tell you, everybody wants to give advice. They want to be heard. They want to tell you what to do. So the more people you can get involved in that process, the better. I think, so I had Tara Zerker on the show a few weeks ago. She's an expert in Facebook ads, and it was one of our more popular episodes. And she kind of reiterated the same point, like learn to speak the language, learn what people want. Because it's really easy to assume what people want, but until you actually start talking and asking for people's opinion, it's hard to know. It's hard to know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Really, really interesting. So another thing that I hear, it's really popular. It's kind of like a key phrase, that hot word is give value. Everyone's talking about giving value. I give value, right? But when you are trying to collaborate with someone or get someone on the phone, how can we actually give that value? Because everyone's always talking about giving value, but really, it's not. They're just asking to get value. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? What's a key takeaway that you've been able to give to people so that you can get the right people on the phone?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. It's almost like you said, so if you're going to sell me, tell me, maybe I'll accept the sale or not. It's just the approach of it all and putting the time into it. I don't even think is as much as is adding value. So we add value by content. We've 100 newsletters that have gone out that are, 1,000+ word of value analysis of the business of fitness and wellness. And, growing from a few readers that are my friends to tens of thousands of people that are, everyone in the space, we just added value that way. It wasn't individualized value. It wasn't, I'm going to try to do something disingenuous and say, hey, I want to do this to you or do this for you or whatever. It was just putting our stuff out there that we thought was valuable. And now getting anyone on the phones is easy just because we put the effort in and we're
Yep.
lucky that kind of hit a vein there. So it doesn't have to be the direct one-to-one value of like, hey, I'm going to, send you something or do something or, for you individually, it's just like build a reputation and put content out there and also just approach it in a very unique way and in a genuine way. For example, like if I'm trying to sell you something, it's, hey, I like the podcast. I've listened to these episodes. I thought these were super valuable. Maybe this is helpful for you. It is tied into these episodes. And that I spent the time
Yeah.
to listen to them, which I actually did. I pulled something from it that, no one that is just skimming would know. And that's a good way to just at least show, and of all the 50 things that are in your inbox, maybe you'll respond.
Yeah.
And also don't expect anything because I hate when people follow up and expect something or say like, waiting to hear back from you. It's like, I'm not going to say anything to you.
Right. Yeah, that is kind of like almost the most hilarious thing where someone will write out just with that example. I love your podcast. I'd love to be on the show, but you've never liked one of my posts. You've never engaged. You're not even following me on any of these platforms. Like are you're let's face it, you're not giving, you're getting. So
Yeah.
you got to attack like that. So that, one other thing that I think is really interesting, Anthony, is with insider.fit.co, you've got this massive newsletter. It's reaching tens of thousands of people. How did you actually get that steam going? Because building a newsletter, I think, is a really important strategy for a side hustler, but it's very difficult to get that started. How did you actually get the snowball rolling on your newsletter?
Yeah, it was just sending it to friends and
Yeah.
people we knew in the industry. We, over the time built up a decent relationship with people in good positions. And it was essentially myself and my brother getting kind of fed up with where things were going in the industry and saying, the way people talk about fitness and wellness and in the business side of it, it's not where, there's companies like MindBody and ClassPass and others that are billion-dollar companies, but people don't look at fitness and wellness like they do other industries because they don't understand the kind of value behind a lot of these businesses that they see, like Equinox and SoulCycle and these billion-dollar companies. So it's let's give our input on what's happening. We had a unique approach, having owned on the ground and then been online and been in the startup space. So we started putting out content to literally 5, 10, 20 people in a newsletter and putting it online.
Love it.
And over a year, it went from 5, 10, 20, 50 and grew. And then you just consistency to every single Tuesday, Tuesday putting out the newsletter, every single Thursday recording another podcast for the next week, really trying to add value there. And I mean, it didn't work for a long time. And then it kind of just hit. Growing
Yep.
by 5 or 10 people a week sucks, and especially when you're putting so much time and effort into it. But then after a while it hit. And I mean, sometimes it doesn't, but the biggest thing was the consistency of it all and really trying to add unique value and putting the time in and really not expecting anything. And when it did hit, we we're like, this is great.
Love that. Love that. Some really core concepts here. Really, really key stuff. We're, of course, talking to Anthony Vennare from insider.fit.co. Anthony, what's the name of the podcast again?
Just the Fit Insider podcast
Fit.
with Joe Vennare, my brother.
Gotcha. Fit Insider podcast. Awesome. So, Anthony, before I let you go, I just want to run through a quick few rapid fire questions. So buckle up, put on your back strap, get ready, grab your kettlebell. Let's go. Anthony, what is a must-have business-related item that costs less than $50?
For me, I don't know if you would say it's business related, but it's some type of, I don't think people take their body into account as much when they think about business. So for me, I take Element. It is a hydration supplement that I put into my drink every day because I drink, like most of you, probably a million drinks of coffee and I'm not hydrated and I don't think of my body. And by the end of the day, I can't even operate because I'm exhausted. LMNT, it's a hydration supplement. And that is honestly the most important thing that I have in our office.
I like that. I'm definitely guilty of the coffee addiction. If
Yep.
you had 10 seconds with yourself 10 years ago, Anthony, what would you say?
Don't close the gyms.
Mm, mm, but got it. Got it. What is a must-have subscription?
I really enjoy so paid subscription or non-paid is the
Either way,
question.
I'll give you either or both,
Okay.
whatever you want.
Apple News. Apple News subscription, the $10 lets me read all the different business insiders and places that are typically paywalls all in one, and it's really easy for me to kind of get the news I need and to learn without having to stop reading articles from the New York Times or Post or Business Insider because they're paywalls. It's been a huge for us on the research side.
Dig it. Dig it. Apple News. If you woke up in the morning, there was only one business task you could do for the day, Anthony, what would you do?
Phone calls. I love getting on the phone or now Zoom and just talking with people. I think that's the biggest value, and nothing gets me more excited.
With potential clients or with collaborations? Who are you getting on the phone?
Um, I would say partners and collaborations.
Okay.
Clients is great, but really just people that we're working with trying to create something new.
Okay. Dig it. Final question here for you, Anthony. If you had a billboard that could reach millions and millions of people, what are you going to put on your billboard?
I would say it would just be my email and say, hey, send me what the ideas you have, some of them you're working on, some of them you're thinking.
That is a salesperson and marketer by heart. Love it. Anthony Vennare, thank you so much.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm glad you enjoyed this episode. I've got several other episodes right here for you. Smash one of these videos to make sure that you don't miss out on the tips, tools, and tactics of industry experts. Let's take that side hustle full time. Smash one of these links.